We're here with Kenny Johnson and 1KJ. What's going on, Kenny? It's a big night tonight. Mother Nature's kind of pushing at the door. I think we might be able to hold it off. It's a big night for your dad. What's your thoughts tonight?
Well, it's bittersweet, to be honest. I wish Dad was here to be a part of this, but unfortunately, that's why we're here, and we're doing the celebration of Dad's life and his passion for racing. And it's pretty special to me. It's pretty special to my mom and my sister, my niece and my nephew. Pretty special to Chad and Tim. I mean, Chad and Tim's like brothers to me, and Dad treated them that way. But I tell you what, I can't thank the racing community enough. I know Facebook's been blowing up, and social media and OVDTR, all the things you all do to promote the race and everything. So although it's just a regular show as far as purse goes, it's a special night, and I want the fans to be a part of it and share with us. And there's some things we want to share as the night goes on. So I sure appreciate you all being here.
The cars are rolling in. I've been watching here last 25, 30 minutes, and a lot of cars. Just real quick, give me something good story about your dad, maybe something funny. Give me some past memory, something you remember as a kid or even later on.
Well, funny stories, and I got to keep them clean. So that's a tough one there. But Dad was just an avid race fan. Here, Chad. Dad was just an avid race fan, and he had a temper when he raced. He was the type of guy that when he got out of his car and he was mad, he'd take his helmet off and sling it back in the car, and it'd bounce around inside the car like a ping pong ball. And he had a few run-ins with a few people. Gib Pat, somebody that I know and respect today, and was a great guy. And Dad and him got together after years have passed, and they come to be friends and everything. But back in those days, fighting was part of racing, and Dad jumped in every chance he got to get in a fight. But he's mended all those fences and made things right, and everybody loved Dad. And I just really anxious for this night, and hope that Mother Nature holds off and cooperates with us, and we're going to have a good time.
One more thing here. Let's get back to current things. Last year was a tough year for you. I mean, I've been following for a lot of years, and last year wasn't one of your better years. This year is kind of coming on. I mean, what are your? You've been running a couple of really nice seconds. I thought maybe you might get a win there a couple weeks ago. What are your thoughts about this year?
Well, you're correct. Last year wasn't our year, or our typical year that we've had the past 4 or 5. Although we got 5 wins and was, it was a good year. But this year we thought we'd come out of the box good and strong. And I'll be honest, I'm a little weak a little bit, but as you said, we've got a couple seconds here lately at Legendary Hilltop. Our chances are pretty decent tonight, I think. The car's been on. So if we can get back in the game and get some wins, that's where we want to be.
Awesome. Class act. There's no better guy in racing than Kenny Johnson. Thanks, Kenny. Senator Todd Todd, the race director at Legendary Hilltop, and sometimes flagman all over the High Valley. Todd, you got any good stories about Gene Johnson?
I got plenty of good stories, but I started out watching Gene when I was 5, 6, 7 years old, and 20 years later I started working at the racetracks. And it seemed like about every week, whether it be High Valley, Skyline, Tyler County, wherever, Gene was always at the bottom of the flag stand questioning what was going on, questioning a call. Well, a few times I spoke to him, and a few times I didn't. A few times I went on the racetrack and took the black flag with me, and he gingerly left the racetrack. But all in all, Gene was a great guy. I mean, we had our differences, but mostly by the end of the night, he'd come up and say what a good job I'd done, and I'd tell him, the same thing. And later on, of course, Kenny races, and, Gene would always ask you, is it okay if I go to the infield on my card? Is it okay if I do this? And I had no problem with it. But probably my most memorable moment with Gene is, he would stop by the house the last 5, 6, 7 years. He stopped by the house at least once a week. And we'd sit on the front porch and just talk about what's going on, talk about his family, and just generally talk racing. And I really miss that out of Gene. So You know, that's my story on Gene. Gene was a great guy. He was bullheaded at the racetrack, and he had a pretty good temper. But when you get him away from the racetrack, like I say, coming to the house, he was a great guy, and he was a family man. So that's my story on Gene.
Awesome. Thanks, son. Stand here with Mr. John Burdett. Hey, John, here's Gene Johnson Memorial. Got anything to say about Gene or Kenny, or maybe some story you might want to share with us?
Yeah, I can remember Gene back 20 years ago when we was racing. To say the least, Gene's very enthusiastic. He was always in the pits and running around, and old Kenny would be running around trying to calm Gene down half the time, and then Gene would be getting on Kenny. He's real passionate about the sport, and love watching Kenny race, and he just loved being around the racetrack all the time. Always come by the trailer and holler something at you, and then later he's always in his golf cart cruising around watching everybody. And Gene's definitely been a person that's always been around the races here at Southern Ohio anyways, in West Virginia.
So on a current note, you're back in the wheel, behind the wheel. How does the car feel? Does it feel good?
Well, we've been running all right, been trying a bunch of stuff, broke several nights, and then every night we've been out that we haven't broke, we've ran pretty decent. We've been top 4, top 5, 1-1. So need a little bit of help over here at Hilltop right now. I'm coming over here to play a little bit and see what we can come up with.
And the old RV is Mr. John Burdett. Good, thanks, John. We're sitting here with driver of number 17, Robbie Evans. Hey, Robbie, it's Gene Johnson Memorial. You got a good story about Gene there for the fans?
I sure do. We was down at the High Valley years ago, and I was just watching. I was a young teenager, and Gene flipped his car in a heat race, and they was flipping the car back over on the track, and Gene run down the track asking for 2 quarts of oil and a quart of power steering fluid, and he poured it in the car on the track and went ahead and finished the race.
That sounds like Gene. Hey, on another note there, you got a young one there coming up behind you, a young boy pushing you. Think I would put that boy in a late model?
Well, I don't know. He's pretty content with the modified right now, and he's got his modified program coming along pretty good. So I'm not going to say we won't at some point, but right now we're going to stick with the modified.
And I guess the next question is, what about the youngest one? He's around that mini wedge. That boy definitely needs to go up. Is he going to get behind that wheel of the modified soon?
He's got a modified sitting at the shop. He's did some practicing, and yeah, at some point he'll probably be in one.
Driver number 17, Robbie Evans. Thanks, Robbie. So I'm here with this is the guy's true legend. This is Charlie Schwartzman. If it gets any better than this guy, I've yet to meet him. Charlie, it's Gene Johnson Memorial. You got anything good about old Gene? You can remember any good stories?
Yeah, I remember back it's been probably 15 years ago, he was always trying to steal my wife. And every time I'd turn around, I'd catch him talking to her. And he'd tell me, say, "Oh gosh, she's pretty." That's what I remember about him more than anything. But yeah, he's a great guy though. He always never failed. If I was at the same racetrack, he never failed coming and seeing me, talking to me, and you know, he was just a great guy. That's all there is to it. And he loved the races.
It's a great Charlie Schwartz. Thanks, Charlie. We really appreciate it. I'm standing with Todd. Hey, Todd, you were telling me another story about Gene Johnson. I thought this was a pretty good story. Can you elaborate a little bit more about this?
Well, it was one night down at the High Valley Speedway back when Gene was in his later years. He was driving a late model, but it was an older late model. I don't remember who it was. It was a number 72 car. I'm sure some people know who that is, but I don't. I was on the flag stand, and Gene happened to start on the front row of the race. Well, they came around for a green flag start, and Gene got a little heavy on the gas, and well, he took off a little bit early. So I threw the green and threw the caution, and put Gene back. Well, we come around, we finished the race. Well, after that heat race was over, well, you know, I was just kind of figuring that somebody would be at the bottom of the flag stand. Well, of course, it happened. So I done a couple more races, and he never left. Gene never left till he got to talk to you. whether he wanted to fight you or whether he wanted to talk to you. And Gene and I've known him all my life, and I know he wasn't going to fight me because we've never fought, number one. But so I went down after we got a little break. I held the races up for a little bit and went down. And he said, "Why in the world did you call me on a jump start?" I said, "Gene," I said, "you took off way before I threw the green flag." His response was, "Well, you know they got a lot better equipment than I do. Why didn't you just let it go?" And I started laughing, and that's just one of the many, many stories. But Gene was a great, great guy. He was always there for the fans. Gene, I mean, the fans loved Gene, number one, but Gene always had, he was always a class act. And if you came early enough, you always got to see Gene roll in a very, very clean race car every week. I don't care. I mean, he was always out there shining on his race car, but he always had the cleanest race car. And like I say, you know, a lot of people remember him as fighting and stuff, but I don't. Okay, as a track worker, I don't, because I guess because I've known him all my life. But that's just one of the many, many stories that I have, and that many other people have. So
Awesome. Thanks, I appreciate it.